The old saying goes, nothing changes if nothing changes, and the Minnesota Vikings offensive line has had issues where, yes, it has gotten extraordinarily better over the last couple of years. Christian Darrisaw is looking like a franchise left tackle. Brian O'Neill, knocking on all the wood, that Achilles injury is good to go, is one of the better right tackles in the game. But the problem has been the interior offensive line. Left to right, left guard, Ezra Cleveland, who's in contract year. Garrett Bradbury's back, and also rookie Ed Ingram, rookie last year, second-year guy this year, had his issues and growing pains, although he did start looking better towards the end of the season. But the Vikings offensive line, it's got its problems, but it is looking up. And what's interesting is the Vikings this offseason so far in free agency have made zero goose egg D'Angelo Russell changes. And what's an anomaly is every single player on the roster for offensive line was on the team last year. They only lost two guys. Our guy Kyle Big Hinton, the pride of Washburn, Go Ichabods, signed a futures deal with the Falcons, as well as Bobby Evans, who was on the practice squad at the end of last season, is currently a free agent. That's it. So every single offensive lineman currently on the Vikings roster was on the team last year in some capacity with a 53-man roster or practice squad. So that's kind of amazing considering the Vikings had offensive line issues and considering that Kwesi has been spending in free agency. And it's not even that the Vikings didn't add a big name free agent offensive lineman. There wasn't even any rumors. Like, there wasn't even any credible steam of the Vikings being in on one of the free agent O linemen. So that's kind of surprising, especially given the interior offensive line. But what the Vikings did, they brought back Blake Brandel as exclusive rights free agent. That was a given. They re-signed Garrett Bradbury. That was a bit of an eyebrow raiser in terms of a 3-year deal, but overall got good value. Schlutman is back as an interior backup. Chris Reed reworked his deal. Oli Udoh was re-signed. So the Vikings are essentially running it back with the unit that they had last year. So Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips, offensive line coach Chris Cooper must have some faith that they're going to be able to juggle things up front, and another year of continuity hopefully is going to pay out some dividends. Because last year, injuries were a big-time factor. Darrisaw missed time with a couple of concussions. Brian O'Neill missed time, obviously, with that Achilles. And also, they had the back issue injury with Garrett Bradbury. But the offense for the Vikings really stepped up. They were 8th in points. They were 7th in yards, 13th in passing yards per attempt, 26th in rushing yards per attempt. Overall, the offensive line in terms of pass blocking was 19th in the league via PFF in pass blocking, and run blocking they were 4th, even though that doesn't really jive with their run production. But Ezra and Ingram were the highest pressured offensive guard duo at 118 total. Ed Ingram was the highest pressure guard in the league. Ezra was the 3rd highest. So that wasn't very good there. Bradbury, 3rd most pressures for a center at 29. But after 3 years of being consistently one of the worst centers in the league, I think that he made a jump to around 10th best, somewhere in there. So the Vikings are certainly betting on that progression. Hopefully he has an even better season in 2023. But running game-wise, Dalvin had a career-low 4.4 yards per carry, and Cousins had a career-high number of sacks and pressures. So, I mean, it really is interesting because the Vikings could create the cap space. The Vikings obviously made free agency moves. The Vikings obviously saw a bit of an issue with the offensive line, but they're bringing back all 5 starters, and they're bringing back all of the key backups as well. And, the key backups, Schlutman, Reed, Oli Udoh, Blake Brandel, I like a lot, but you obviously don't see them contending for one of the starting spots. And in the draft, since the Vikings only have 5 draft picks, absent them going all in on an offensive lineman in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round, if they maneuver back into the 2nd or trade down or trade up, I don't see anyone necessarily coming in the draft and unseating an Ezra or an Ed Ingram. And that could be by design, where Ezra, we've said this a bunch. I think he's a left tackle playing left guard. He is in the final year of his rookie deal, though, so they may just want to play things out with the quasi-veteran. Darrisaw is good to go. Bradbury, they're betting on. Ed Ingram, of course, Kwesi and the scouting staff and the coaching staff, they bet on Ed Ingram. They made a big move to get him in the 2nd round. So obviously they're not going to give up on him after 1 year. He played every single offensive snap for the Vikings last year. He did get better towards the end of the season after starting out absolutely horrifically. Like, after he stopped stepping on Kirk Cousins' foot, things got better. And hopefully knock on all the wood, Brian O'Neill's rehab is going to be good to go, and he'll be ready to rock and roll for training camp, as Kevin O'Connell had mentioned with his progress update from rehab. So, again, it's interesting, and you do have to put some faith in Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell and Chris Cooper, but, I mean, offensive line was an issue, and the fact that they made 0 changes and literally brought back everyone who was on the squad last year of note is interesting. So we'll see what happens in the draft, and we'll see if, 6th, 7th wave free agency, the Vikings will do something. But your thoughts are thoughts. Zero, Goose Egg, D'Angelo Russell, offensive line changes for the Vikings. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work, put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.